See, even on the inside pages today, there's a mention of that, where the Auditor General, Nancy Gathungu, has already declared the university funding model as being faulty. But I want us to focus on some of those things that gains that had already been made. 2003, I'm sure you are a very young person, Brian Abiswa. That's the first time we had free primary education. This is 22 years later. And now the declaration by this expert that ODM gave to government is that we've been lying to ourselves. This is not something we can afford. And going forward, probably we need to rethink some of these things. Do you feel let down by successive governments that there was a promise for free primary education, it was achieved to some extent, and now it looks like we may not be able to continue with it?
Good morning, Fred, and to all our viewers today. This issue around the funding of free education, which has borne fruits since the year 2003, and I'm speaking as one of the beneficiaries, full beneficiaries of the free primary education and the subsidized high school education. But on the other hand, I really want to thank the CS Mbadi for being free with Kenyans and telling Kenyans how the reality is. Because for the past 3-4 years, schools and school heads and teachers and parents have been complaining of how they have been required by schools to make extra payments on their school fees. And this has been given to light yesterday by the CS that the government has been unable to fully fund the free education as required. Now, this issue, we as Kenyans, we also have to understand that we've been calling on the government's relooking in the budget of this country, especially in the wake of last year, when we requested that instead of asking the government to increase taxes to fund various projects, we asked them that they should relook at the budget. And we see that these are some of the now implications of the government trying to reduce the budget deficit instead of extra borrowings and extra taxations. But on the other hand, I also feel that education, being one of the important pillars of this nation, I think there should be something which should be done. Like, they should have looked into other sectors, but ensure that the education is not affected highly. Because we say that education is an equalizer, but when they are creating this kind of scenario, it means that now we are going back to where many households were unable to afford education. And it can be just one way of trying that we reduce the number of those people who are not educated. Because also there is a high pressure on the government to provide employment to those Kenyans who are learned, but there is no employment. And when you see this kind of policies coming in place, it means that there is someone somewhere who feels like when they make education expensive, few people will get education, and therefore few people will have to mount pressure on the government to provide employment. You can see when the government also increased the grading of those people, of the learners joining the university to a C+. They got to a point where they said, no, we have to go back to higher grades. So that means that now they will require few people joining the universities and higher institution of learning. Therefore, they will have to reduce now the number of graduates who will demand employment. And this is all due to the pressure which now currently the Kenyan people, most of the youths are pushing now the government to provide the jobs, because you have educated the youths. Now after educating them, what next? You have to give them employment.
And it's a very interesting idea that you give there, that it could be by design. To reduce the level of literacy this way. But how does it look politically that, Hans Rob, for William Ruto's administration, that something that has been enjoyed for 20 years it is during your administration that now we could be looking at the possibility of clawing back on some of those gains. Education, free primary education has been one of those that has been touted as the most progressive gains that Kenya has made from the Kibaki times.
Fred, for the correction, it's not my administration. It is the administration of someone I believe in. So I'm just here like...
I said, what does it look, how does it look politically for William Ruto that during his administration is when those gains are being
politically, many people will take advantage of maybe the situation that is in at hand today and maybe run with it and talk much about it. But there are facts that come before it. And when you discuss it, one thing I love is that at times when you discuss with a human being and more Kenyans, there could be a reaction, but within some few days they will think and find out truly whatever the president of the government is saying has some sense. Because one is we got free education in 2002. That's more than 20 years ago. Population has increased to where we are today. It means how we manage, the government was able to pay school fees or to give free education then might not be guaranteed today, because today we have a big number, yet we still do not have a big budget for it. If you even check the budget for education for 2025, 2026, the government has budgeted 702 billion. Previous year, it was around 500 and something billion. So despite that increment, the government cannot still cap the population that is there. So we must be well fastened by the population that has increased so that we do not assume that the government is going against it, because we have a better budget than the one that it was there before, and still it is not sustainable. So unless Kenyans go much deeper into their pockets so that we are able to run with those kind of services. Why? Because commodities have also increased prices, like services that are being offered in school materials, salaries of teachers have also gone high. So it makes the budget of Ministry of Education to go high. So sustaining free education means there must be an increase of certain amount of tax going forward so that the government can be able to keep the scale going forward. Because today, the government has increased to employ 76,000 teachers, and it has a target of employing almost 100,000 by the end of the year. That's a big budget in the Ministry of Education. So it means you cannot just assume that the ones for paying the free education will be sustainable. Why did the government choose maybe to employ more teachers, and maybe we're in this kind of crisis today? Because if you give also free education and you do not have teachers, we will be also discussing that the government has not employed teachers to educate the people that are around. So the government must balance both, whereby you have enough teachers and see also whatever you can do with their school fees. Again, you'll also realize that the government has become courageous to speak about it. We've been in situations of government that hide so that they keep the politicalness that you're asking me sweet to the common mwananchi. But we have a government today that is courageous enough to face and be honest about it, that despite any political pay that is going to be there, we have to discuss with Kenyans the truth so that we build this country together. You know, remember President has been saying, it is all of us to build this country. Let us take Peter decision if we are not even famous politically, so that we are able to help our country. If we continue blackmailing Kenyans and maybe putting on a face that looks to give confidence, yet behind we know whatever is happening, then we'll be leaders who are not giving the right decisions. And lastly, I want to encourage the Minister of Education and probably members of parliament who are doing budget and the government at large is, we've seen situations whereby governors are launching bursaries of over 600 million in a county. We've seen members of parliament giving out bursaries of over 50 million in the CDF budget. We've also seen MCS under the county government. We would really want to request these leaders that despite the fact fame you want to make to mwananchi that you are the one who was given out the bursary, if all this money was consolidated, that amount that goes to bursary in county be given by the national government, the ones in the CDF be given by the national government, we're able to consolidate all this fund and give a fully free education if not solved to some level.
And yes, indeed, the education CS alluded to that there's a lot of money all over the place. And if it's consolidated, probably he'd be able to fund education better. And everyone wonders, why don't do
unfortunately,
it? Why can't you do it?
Unfortunately, before you give my friend Ken, unfortunately is we live in a country that is full of selfishness. We must be honest. Even today when you drive along the streets of town, your brother will not allow you to, will never give you way. All of us, I don't know whether we are selfish or bitter of life. We want to force things ahead. Even today, members of parliament wouldn't want to give out their bursaries. So if you go to the parliament, because most of the things are passed in parliament, if today we go to the parliament and tell them, let's leave all this money, go to the Ministry of Education, be run by Ministry of Education, they'll say no, because they want to take the credit of it.
So
you saw the
because of political
you saw the governors responded when the Auditor General said.
So would we rather let the politicians have their way and lose again, like free primary education?
The constitution that we have today do not give us powers directly to do it. We wish our representatives could do better for us.
The Kenya Kwanza administration was heavy on affordability and access of education, commitment to making education more affordable and accessible to all Kenyans. And you've seen the kinds of attempts they've made with the university funding model. And now the kind of crisis we're having with the free primary education and capitation to even subsidize free secondary education. Do you think that this, as Hans put it, is just a government giving us the reality check that this is no longer sustainable and this is an issue, or do you see it as failure on the part of this administration?
Thank you so much, Fred, and I appreciate the contributions from my colleagues here. But allow me first to say that education is the engine. Education is why we are seated here. Education is why you can put something on the table. Education is why President Ruto is who he is today. Education is why everybody within that parliament, apart from, except from others, are where they are. So we cannot pretend that, in fact, we cannot pretend that having enjoyed, and their children, having enjoyed the free primary education and secondary that was instituted by Kibaki, now they've just realized that, guys, we can never sustain this thing anymore. This is a plot to deny many vulnerable communities in this country an opportunity. Let me tell you, Fred, look at it. If you shift and we go the direction that we are going right now in terms of education, this cost of education is going, the burden, the bigger part of it is going to fall on parents. These parents are the same people who are dealing with the high taxations and cannot even run businesses. These are the same people, some of them have been laid off because taxes is so high to an extent that some companies are closing. Get that? So if they have been laid off, they cannot even run their businesses. And then now you take the education burden again back to them. What we are trying to say is we are going to have a situation where school dropouts are going to be many. We are going to have a situation where children and families will not be able to take their kids to school. And what will be the ripple effect? People will go back to the streets, and we are going to increase the number of thievery and burglary. So we are going to be in a state where thieves and conmen are so many because an opportunity has been denied by the government. Let me say this. In 2003, when Kibaki looked at the situations and analyzed everything, and then he decided that let's give these kids a free primary education. His intention, he understood that one day the population will be many. Will increase and be too much. But it is the business of government to adjust and ensure that in whatever they do, they provide the most critical asset you can ever give somebody. That's education. Get that? But look at the Kenya Kwanza regime. During their campaign period, they were campaigning on the grounds of providing affordable education, affordable healthcare, affordable housing. Today, as it stands, nothing is affordable. Education is now on the trajectory of being swept away. And I said it the other time when they came up with the issue of new funding model. When the students realized that this thing is not favorable as it's being made to look like, and the parents also noted that this thing will affect us, the students and the parents went to the streets, agitated against it, and what did the government do? They put up a secretariat committee to look into the issues and areas of advancement up to date. There is no report that has been tabled and said that these are the proposals from the students following the the consultations that were done, and this is how we can readjust the affordable, new funding model to suit everybody. Nothing has happened. So what I can say on this issue, Fred, is that the NFM, the new funding model, is faulty, and it's not people-centered, and it's going to kill the education level. It's going to kill higher learning institutions. Number two, reduction of capitation will automatically result into high dropouts. And I want to tell you that very few families will be able to educate their children. Number three, the issue of bursaries. And my brother has mentioned it, and it's good that for the first time I'm hearing it, I've heard him talk something out of heart, honestly. It's not something common with people in government. We need to disband the bursaries and put it in one basket so that we can fund education. The critical thing we need in this country, before we look at anything, are two: education and health. You get me? So the MPs must now relinquish the bursary. We have a governor's bursary. In my lifetime, I have never seen anybody who have ever received governor's bursary. Maybe, if you have. Me, I've never seen anyone. In my circles, sijawahi ona mtu amepata bursary ya governor. We have the president's bursary, scholarship. In fact, the president's scholarship, you cannot get it if you're not in the trenches in the corridors of power. So to some extent, it is put there fully budgeted for, but for specific people. If you're not a son or a daughter of a minister, you cannot find yourself in Australia. If you are not Chamge, and I dare challenge my brother to contradict this. If you are not Chamge, my friend, you cannot find scholarship to go to Australia. And it is on record. They are the majority. Those are scholarships that form live within the president's scholarship. Let me just, we have the MCS also issuing bursaries. So we need to collect all these monies, put in one basket, and offer affordable and quality education. Finally, let me just address something my brother raised here, that the government is using this tactic of reducing the number of young people or people who will be asking for jobs. You cannot deny people food, because if they get energy, they will ask you for what they should do with that energy. My brother, let everybody go to school, let everybody get the academic, and let them do whatever they want to do with that education. In 1997, William Ruto was already a member of parliament. In 2003, when free education was being implemented, William Ruto was serving a second term. And William Ruto is a beneficiary of BOOM at that time. The same replication of HELB, which is currently fighting to do away with. So in short, the guy is telling us that I understand the privileges and the opportunity that comes with HELB being in position and free primary education and secondary being in position. And therefore, I cannot allow you, mtoto ya mama mboga, to get those opportunities, because if you get them, you are likely to be like me. That's what the government is telling us. And not the government, but the president himself, because everything, and I said here before, whatever happens in this country, the buck stops the president. Okay. That's why if people are dying, we call the president, because he must be aware that people are being shot on the streets. He must be aware that the education is not working. Finally, we saw yesterday, there's a member of parliament who gave a very critical revelation about the Bomet High School. And I dare ask my brother Hans if maybe he's an alumni of Bomet High School, because the school does not exist. Mm-hmm. And it received a capitation of 50 million.
Indeed, it is a revelation that was given by the members of
Parliament. And remember, that is just one case. During the Azimio petition on the election malpractices, it was revealed that there are many polling centers, many schools that were used as polling centers, but they do not exist. Get that? So these schools, Bomet High School is just one, but I'm certain that there are many schools that are there that receives capitation, but they do not exist in reality. So it's a con game.
Brian, the issue is a question of whether or not it is a reality that we cannot afford this completely, that it is out of our league, or it is an issue of priority. Because yes, the debate about NGCDF that Hans Rop discussed, and maybe it's not even the president's problem, it's a national issue, that we need to change the conversation around education funding in Kenya. Do you agree that probably it's just an issue of our priorities and not really the fact that we are unable to fund education?
Fred, looking at this reduction in capitation, for me, I'll totally agree with the CS that at the moment it's not tenable to fund the education, and it has not started today. You know, the CS himself has said, and he has given the figures, that for the past 6 years, the government has not been releasing the required capitation to schools. He gives a figure of 16,000 per head of the learners which has been there. So he has just come out to be so truthful to tell Kenyans that, look, this is what has been happening, and the fact is we cannot afford.
So we have been lying to ourselves.
Yeah, we have been lying.
We cannot afford this.
We cannot afford this. And when my friend says that it's at the moment, when he says that the reduction of capitation, it's the negligence of the government, sometimes we ourselves, we have to blame. Just recently, we went on the streets. We demanded that no more taxation. And the impact, why we are having this high taxation, Fred, we understand that Kenya is crippling with the high debts. And most of this taxation that we are getting is going towards repayment of the interest of the debts that the previous regime has took. Part of it, and which is being taken now. So if we are paying debts, we are remaining with so little towards development. And we ourselves as Kenyans, we are also demanding development from the government. You hear the conversation, and I'm here before this show ends. My friend Ken will question Rob to tell what projects this government is doing. So we are demanding projects from the government, but we're also demanding the government to undertake the recurrent expenditures, which includes education. We are also telling the government, work around your budget. So if we want all this to happen, the government clearly, even when the CS was reading the budget, he gave out a very little deficit which was there, and he said we have reached at this little deficit because we are working around reducing the expenditure of the government. And we find that some of these effects have landed in the Ministry of Education. Yes, I agree that there has to be, they can harmonize this budget to look into other areas which is not a priority, so that they can cushion the education sector to ensure that they get the education sector sufficient funds. You know, on the other hand, Fred, when we look at this issue of issuing bursaries, even the bursary itself is not in the budget. There is no fund which is called the bursary funds. But these leaders, what they do, they take the funds they are giving and they allocate it. That's why we are saying that, yes, let them abolish this issue of CDF, let them abolish this issue to do with the GAF, or reduce it, so that they can consolidate.
And they are opting to cut or do away with free primary education, or subsidizing free education, secondary education, instead of what you're suggesting, that consolidate the funds.
Okay, as we support, sometimes we support the sentiments. You know, sometimes we are supporting the sentiments of the CS for having told Kenyans the truth. But we are also against now this issue of abolishing, as you say, the subsidized secondary education and the areas around to do with the examinations. Because we understand that previously, someone would have just missed out of getting the quality education for lacking fee or lacking the examination fee only. So what we request is that let them reduce this funding towards the CDF. Instead of giving a member of parliament 100 million, let them give them 50 million for other things, and try to take some extra cash to the education to ensure that the education is not crippled. Because we understand that, Fred, there are key sectors in this country, that is the health sector and education. These are very delicate sectors which have to be protected by all means.
Yes, and curiously, it's those two sectors that where the president is receiving a lot of criticism in. The reforms in the health sector, the reforms in the education sector. You mentioned about the budget come 2003 when we first had free primary education, and in comparison, our budget is more than 10 times. Back in 2003, the expenditure for the country in that budget was about 211 billion shillings. Right now, the expenditure is 4.2 trillion shillings. As the population grows, so that do our budgets, so does even the collection of revenue by KRA. Then where is the justification that now we no longer can afford some of these social services?
Fred, you've indicated it so well. There's increased population, increase of pricing, increase of number of teachers employed, increase of students that are coming in, increase of the
also an increase in the budget.
So I'll give you an extra assignment to do later. Calculate the percentage. So if the budget for 2 was this, and the one for education was this, it was how many percentage of the total budget? Mm-hmm. And how much is today 7 or 2 billion percentage of the total budget we have? You'll realize today we have it's over 29% of the total budget, mm-hmm. whereas even previously it has never been to that level. So the government has done much better than where we are today. So just to give a further explanation is when you have a honest government, the government that does not come, if a government wanted to play politics to be famous, it has the game, it has all machinery to do it. But we have a government today who want to partner with its citizens and build a country to honesty, to get the country out of difficulties of debts and lying to each other. That's why many people today who have even been in government previously come to become teachers and they implement nothing. When I listen to my brother Babu, he's youth leader for DAPK. His party leader has been in government for many years as a minister, even previous government. We have nothing to talk about them. There is no track record. And today they are the best teachers who correct the current government today and see like they just got saved from nowhere within 2 years. The kind of effects we are dealing today are results of such kind of leadership that was there before. When you hear about funding model, and even for the one for university, unless we do not want to listen, what the president is saying, even before when the funding model for universities came, every child used to be eligible. The one that a parent is able to pay the school fees, but it was not enough. It could never give to all students. So the government says the way we are going to help students who are getting higher education is to ensure that the most needy students get it. Because today, if my parents are able to pay school fees, why should I be given a boom and have a brother who probably his parents are not in a position to do it, and he may not qualify because we are competing on application for the little funds available. So we've said, when you're applying for this funding model, you attach the details of your parents. You attach the birth certificate, you attach the KRA PIN. KRA PIN is able to tell the government how much your parent earn. So if your parent is not employed, you are the first person that this funding model is going to give you a priority to get the funding model for the university. If today my parents works in a government, if today my parents are a business person and KRA PIN is able, under Kenya Revenue Authority, to tell us how much we earn or your parent earns. So in that kind of strategy, the most important need will be solved by this funding model on students. Again, let me just help my brother Babu that let us not be tribal when we are discussing issues. He said that today, if you're not Jamgay, you cannot get scholarship to Australia. If we're able to do auditing today, I don't know what we'll be able to tell people, but we have had many people from my region, the Kalenjin community, going to Australia because people have developed passion to go and do education in Australia, and we do Arambes every weekend. It is not funded by the government. It is there in public. You will get the Arambes being done. You cannot going to Australia is not it's not a scholarship given by the Ministry of Education. So I just want to request my brother that.
And I'd like to encourage you that all of us that we avoid getting tribal.
Yeah, we shouldn't. We shouldn't. Yeah, and I wouldn't want to give such a backlash because I wouldn't miss words for it. And then lastly is, Fred, I would want to encourage ourselves today as citizens of Kenya that let us appreciate whatever has been done. We are being led by human beings who are not perfect. Therefore, we can never get everything into perfection as we do. A few weeks ago, we were here discussing that share is not working. Some of us, we were trying to tell that share is working. Loopholes are being sealed. Today, share is working. Nobody's discussing. we are at a state whereby we pick where a problem is, we make it a discussion. We pick another problem, we make it a discussion. When will we have an opportunity to appreciate efforts that has been done? When will we be coming here to discuss the successes that have been achieved so that at least the people can appreciate? When will we have a lens that gives us feasibility that is honest and true? Okay. So that we are able to appreciate the progress that is there, to build a patience over the things we are expecting, and to trust also the government on whatever it's saying, that we might be able to hold on what the government can give us and see how we can manage whatever we cannot get.
All right. It is 3 years into this administration, and this week the president has come out at least on 2 occasions to say that he should be given a chance for his plan to work. Ken Babu, the president talked on Sunday while attending church service, I think in Ukambani, about the promises he made and the criticism that he overpromised. And he says that it was a way of raising the level of ambition of a country and the aspirations of Kenyans. Do you agree with him that probably some of the promises he made in reality may take longer to achieve, and probably it would be right for this country to give him more time towards achieving them?
Let me say, Fred, you know, when Kenya Kwanza regime was campaigning to take power, we were all in this country. We didn't come yesterday and found them in power. Neither did they come yesterday and found us in this country. Kenya Kwanza, President William Ruto was on record overpromising to convince Kenyans or convince the populace to give him an opportunity. Whatever he was saying, he was very much aware of the available resources and the capacity of the nation to either deliver or not to. So in whatever thing that he's saying right now, he has a responsibility. In fact, there is no in the constitution that is stipulated that a president should serve for 2 terms. So he has up to 2027 to deliver what he promised, because when he was campaigning, President Ruto was not giving a manifesto that will be delivered in 10 years. He was giving a manifesto that will be implemented in 5 years within the terms at which he was elected by then. So whatever he said should be administered and delivered within 5 years. So then, if he seeks re-election, he gives us a report and an advancement of what he would like to progress with. So up to now, he cannot say that, oh guys, you need to give me time or do what. No. He has a manifesto, the better manifesto. Let him implement that manifesto within 5 years. The constitution does not promise him or guarantee him a second term. Get that? That now is left for the people. Let me just say something kidogo about the education. Allow me make it clear that, Fred, we are doomed as a country. If we are now talking about not offering education, then there is no need of even the country existing, because that is the basis. That is where we start from. That is the most critical thing you can give to anybody. Because if you are educated, Fred, today, if you are Dr. Fred, there is no day we will wake up and strip it off you. You need that education. So if we are talking about, we have billions of money to say that we are going to build a church, we have billions of money to say that we are doing economic empowerment, which ends up into 64 shillings. We have monies to walk around and show opulence, but we cannot fund the most critical thing. Go into those, economic empowerment gatherings. People are so vulnerable, people are hopeless. And those families, most of them are anchoring that if their sons or daughters get quality education, something or there shall be a change in their families. So what we are asking, how did President Kibaki manage to run free primary education between 2003 up to 2008, when he also introduced free secondary education in day schools? How was he able to manage that? And the issue of population increment, as the more population grows, the more taxes you collect. That. So it is something that it's a match. So we cannot say that the government cannot fund free education because people are many. The same thing, people are many are also paying taxes. Fred, let me say that we are wasting a lot of money in things that do not matter as a country. And I think it's high time that the Kenya Kwanza regime, because they have that mandate as of now, revise their priorities and ensure that they invest appropriately. But if they cannot do it, we are the loyal opposition. When we take power, we will show them what needs to be done that can benefit the common mwananchi. My brother said something about the popularity or the famousness, the political famousness or popularity. I can say that today, if you go into any villages today, any child of age 5 and above knows that there's somebody in this country called William Ruto. They do. But unfortunately, the guy is popular and famous on wrong reasons. He's very popular. President Ruto today is very popular, but for wrong reasons. Get that? If you want to talk of, if you ask any child around, they will tell you, oh, tunajua mtu anaitwa Ruto. Mnamjua aje? Ati abduction. Atipiga vijana risasi. Ati watu wanaiba pesa. You get that? So the president is very popular. Already is popular. So we cannot say that the government is being honest with the Kenyans by telling us that they cannot fund education for them to not to be popular politically and be honest. There is nothing like honesty in that. In fact, it's a scheme to make Kenyans comfortable that there's not enough resources to fund education so that they can steal more in the pretext that, guys, we do not have money. They're just creating bases to keep looting. This regime is very popular and popular for the wrong reasons. Number one, abduction. If you talk of abduction, you cannot mention any regime. Moi did it, but it was not to this extent. Look at that. If you talk of forced extrajudicial killings, you cannot mention Kibaki. You cannot mention Uhuru. You will mention this regime. If you talk of corruption, it is now at the top. Corruption is sitting lonely at the top in this regime. Get that? If you talk about issues around what do we call it? Police brutality. Get that? Sitting at the top, lonely in this regime. So when we are seated here as young people who are also interested in the future, we must be honest and speak truth to the old guys and tell them that, guys, the future that you are messing today, we are the ones who are going to face the consequences. Okay. If President Ruto, John Mbadi, and Migos Ogamba, the CS Education, cannot sit down and find out a solution to ensure that Kenyans are getting education that they deserve, Hans Ropia, my brother Brania, and myself, we are the custodian of the consequences, because these guys are likely not to be there in the next 30 years. Mm-hmm. And the ripple effect of this mess that we're having today will be seen in 30 years from now. Right. And we shall be there seated and suffering the consequences to Generation Alpha, and putting pressures on us.
You appear to have seen that dilemma that, yes, this, in effect, if it continues like this, there's a generation that's not going to enjoy the benefits of affordable education, and probably many of them may not be able to access it. Yeah. That, just as Ken Babu says, will show up or will be probably manifest in a few decades, 10 years or 15 years from now. Do you agree that that will be a problem, a bigger problem, that a whole generation, just like the Gen Zs yourself are saying you're a beneficiary of affordable education, that another generation that will miss out on that could be a problem in 10, 15 years' time? Yes.
Fred, that's why we are saying that it's true that Kenya, we have gotten that advantage of being an elite in the education sector. That's why you go to Tanzania, they will respect the Kenyans being bright. You go to Uganda, you go to Rwanda, in East Africa and Africa, they respect Kenyans. That's why even there is a song which says that akili ni ya Kenya. It's not that because we were born like that, it's because that we had a subsidized education which gave every child of Kenya to go to school. And even during Kibaki's time, he enforced that the chiefs and the village elders, to ensure that there is no a single child who will stay at home for one reason or another, because the education is free. But the question here is, Fred, it's not that this issue has started today. This issue has been there. What the CS has done is that he has just told Kenyans the truth, that, listen, Kenyans, we have been struggling with this issue of funding the free education for many years, 6 years or so. And when we say that 6 years, this issue, it means that this issue didn't start with this regime. This issue has been there even during Uhuru's time, that they have been giving not enough capitation to the point where the schools has required the parents to dig. Even when you look at socials, many people are asking, has there been free education since the year 2008? Because we know along the way things got it and went wrong. Now, when my brother Babu says that, what did Kibaki do? For any sane person, for any person who has enjoyed free education and has learned, you have to differentiate the economic situation of this country between the year 2002 to now, to 2008 and now. 2003, Kenya, we had a very lean, our budget, our borrowing was so low, external and both internal. It was less than 2 trillion, less than a trillion, let me say. So we had a space whereby we could borrow to fund the education freely. Look at the dollar, the rate of the dollar in 2002 and now. And even the Kenyan market itself, we are importing everything. So, and that exposure of the dollar has really affected our economy so much. So, when we say that what did Kibaki do that this government can also do, we also have to be fair to this government at some point, that the economic situation at that time and now is not the same. Secondly, he mentioned something. You know, we are just trying to tell Kenyans the fact. Yes, I'm one of the person who are against this thing which is going on in the name of empowerment forums. But his party, where he serves, is also at the forefront in doing this economic forum. Even today, there is one led by his deputy party leader, which is being organized somewhere. So when we speak about this thing, let us be objective and tell Kenyans the fact that when we say that no empowerment forums, he should start with his party and say that my party is also doing this, let us debunk it. Because, Fred, looking at these economic forums, personally, I know how much does a member of parliament earn. And every week, a member of parliament is giving out 700,000, 500,000, and this program is there every week. So per month, a member of parliament is giving out 2 million, over 2 million. So that means that there is funds somewhere which are meant for CDF, which could go towards education and important programs which are being used in the wrong way. Now,
I'll come back to you because I want us to finish this issue about education and talk about something else as you get your final word on this. Would it be enough for this administration to just give us a reality check? And at the end of the first 5-year term, tuambia, we've been living a lie. Your free primary we cannot afford, so let's just be realistic. And despite the promises that were given leading towards 2022, will it be enough just to tell Kenyans we've been living a lie?
You know, Fred, before I give a feedback on the reality, I just want to state categorically to many Kenyans and maybe even the opposition, we are not desperate for 2027. We are thankful that even God has given this first term. So, maybe you as hold on, Babu.
Go ahead, Hans.
You are desperate yourself for
Proceed, my brother. But the president is desperate. Proceed.
Hold on. You know, today if you watch your TV, you can know who is desperate for power and who is not. You can see who is fighting to get into the power and who is not. You can see the bitterness of somebody talking on a national TV and who is not bitter. So, one day, if you have good memory, there's a time even the current president, when he was a deputy president, said, even if I retire today as a deputy president, it will be a great achievement. I never knew I would be here. I know on a personal interview, would say the same, that even if I retire as a one-term president, I never even imagined I would be here today. And that's why we are making bitter decisions that it is better to deliver. Just to
Is it going to be enough for him to tell Kenyans this is a reality check? We are not able to do a lot of these things.
Why are we saying this? Why are we giving information that the government cannot fully fund education?
Is that enough, given the promises that were made?
And let me tell you,
first, the question.
Let us make this known to Kenyans before we come here and say that the government cannot fund. It says the government cannot fund fully. The government can afford to fund 17,000 out of 22,000, which is a budget. So we have a deficit of 5,000 by every child. Let us get there first.
Capitation funds to schools have been getting to as low as 10,000 as received. And it's there in the stories that, yes, in the budget it's lower by 5,000 shillings, but even what has been getting to school is even lower. Mm-hmm. It's down to 10,000 shillings.
And that's why what Mbadi said, that is what has been happening. What the government is able to do today is to keep 17,000, not 22,000. So we know the government will give us a way forward, either by balancing the budget at the ground with teachers. There is also a scandal of principles of budgeting in the schools, so that they have a way of doing their game there. So we want to see what the government is. I'm sure the president, despite they have given us the current state, and I'm sure they are going to give us a way forward. And I wish we become patient because we have a president who is caring. When you say that, should the government give us the state that they can never afford this, Fred, is that when you want to afford it, you have to be honest with your current situation. The government that we have today have given us honesty of where they are and what they can afford. And they're saying, this is the truth of what we can do. But they never say that they are not doing anything going forward.
Okay.
So we give time to see whatever happens. We've been here complaining about SHA. We've seen progress. We've been here complaining about other things. We've seen progress. Let us give it to the Minister of Education and the government to give us a way forward. But the truth is, for the last 6 years, that is what has been happening.
Okay.
And just to add, I want us to, one day, Fred, you call us here to discuss things that the government has achieved. As much as we would always want to
unfortunately,
criticize, as much as we would want to...
I go by the headline. What pictures on the front pages is what...
It is the same media that we're asking them, can you also do a documentary on whatever the government has achieved?
And I think we focus too much on this education matter. There's something else that affects young people, and I want us to get to that.
Okay, but let me just drop a pin to what my brother is asking for. You know, now that he's here, this is the time for him to tell us what the government is doing. We cannot have an independent interview just to discuss what the government is doing, while we know that there is nothing to be discussed. So this is the moment. When you get an opportunity, you can tell us.
That's why you are not complaining about SHA today. SHA is working. Bro, can you appreciate that?
You want me to go that direction?
Yes.
You will run away.
To where?
All right.
But
he mentioned something to do with the fighting to get to power.
The records here when you are saying SHA is not working. Can you say SHA is working today?
Fred, date back to when...
You're honorable enough.
Give me time, my brother.
It was not even your time.
Give me time. Date back to when President Ruto was the deputy president and he was looking for an opportunity to be the president. And tell me if he was not fighting to be where he is today. So you see, it's not something that you can now take away from others because you have used it to be in position. We are going to fight it. If it's about fighting, this is war. And we are going to fight it viciously until we get there and offer alternative leadership. In fact, what I can tell young people across the country, be ready for war, because the Kenya Kwanza regime has shown intentionality of not relinquishing power despite the fact that Kenyans are asking them to go out democratically. So it's a war. We are going to fight.
Control my brother Fred, or rather he becomes an activist. You cannot declare war on a national TV.
No. I'm saying democratic war.
Statement, bro.
Ballot war. This is ballot war, bro.
Gentlemen.
No, this is ballot war.
Gentlemen.
No.
At the ballot, bro.
Slow, bro. Slow. Go slow.
I want us to focus on another issue that has affected quite a number of young Kenyans who got involved in the demonstrations of June 25th this year and even during the Sabasaba demonstrations. And quite a huge number is still behind bars facing anti-terror charges. And whether or not this is a correct act, the Prevention of Terror Act, to prefer charges of terror against demonstrators, that's a big question. And it's been a subject of key debate this week. It is part of the stories covered here at TV47, the terrorism charges tag. Yesterday, the ODPP spoke about the same and differed with the CJ Martha Koome on this issue. Let's watch that story.
Over 1,500 people have been arrested in connection with the June 25th anniversary and Sabasaba protests that shook the nation this year. Human rights groups say that in the past month alone, over 100 protesters have faced terror-related charges.
It's not only the act of bombing, the act of destroying any government installation is an act of terrorism under the Potter. It is within the law. It is not somebody making it.
The terrorism charges sparked a huge debate, with activists and opposition leaders flagging the terror charges as an intention by the state to suppress protests and dissent. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, too, has been blamed for abusing its prosecutorial powers in the charging of young protesters with terrorism charges.
We have charged people with terrorism-related offenses when they vandalize government installations in Northeastern. You know that? It's not only the act of bombing.
In an earlier statement, the ODPP had cited Chief Justice Martha Koome's statement on the Kikuyu Law Court's arson on June 25th as an act of terrorism to justify its position on what warrants a terrorism charge. This raising eyebrows on the independence of the ODPP as guaranteed by the Constitution.
When a law has not been applied for some time, when you apply it, then it's not the law. That is the law.
However, Chief Justice Martha Koome, in a statement yesterday, distanced herself from the terrorism charges filed by the Director of Public Prosecution against protesters, clarifying that her words were not intended to influence the DPP's prosecutorial decisions. Koome maintains that her comments about the Kikuyu Law Court's arson were made specifically concerning that incident based on preliminary security briefings. According to the Prevention of Terrorism Act of Kenya, acts of terrorism are punishable by severe penalties, including the death sentence if the act results in death. Sheila Chelangat for TV 47.
They say the law cuts both ways, and anyone who uses a wrong piece of legislation against another Kenyan could end up facing the same after some time. Do you agree that probably this time around the police or the security agencies could have misused the Prevention of Terror Act, a law that has not been used in this way against people who have gone out to the streets to demonstrate, because there are provisions for other penalties in other laws for issues like murder, arson and such like things? Why use the Prevention of Terror Act against young Kenyans? Do you agree that probably this time around they got it wrong?
Fred, on that question, actually we ought to get the difference, or what qualifies one to face terror charges. And also, when you go to you look at the Constitution, there are charges which someone has to face, the arson charges. Now, if they're telling us that those young Kenyans who were caught, okay, we are not quite sure, because there are complaints that probably the people who committed the acts are not the same people who were caught. Now, I also feel that actually those young Kenyans who are charged with these who are facing this kind of charges, I think it's too harsh for them to face this kind of charges, because these were demonstrators, and we understand that probably there are people who infiltrated those demonstrations with the other intentions. And also, we are aware that we have some organized groups which were prepared to counter the demonstration. So they made the whole thing to lose the meaning, or to turn out to be another thing. But being charged with this kind of facing this kind of charges, it's something that we all feel like it's not fair to them. Actually, maybe they will have looked around the issues of arson, because if you say that the courts and some properties were burned and we have people who were caught on the scene, they will relook on the charges and probably give them the very charges that they ought to face, other than terrorism, because we know that terrorism is something which is big. And maybe for me, I feel like someone to be involved in a terror, he needs to have some sophisticated weapons and all those kind of things. Like we were dealing with Al-Shabaab, we are dealing with people who are coming to organized groups, having some sophisticated weapons. But these people probably some of them, we feel like some charges, as some quotas say, they are just prefabricated. And I feel like charging them with this kind of charges is just to sell fear to other people, to people who intends to go to demonstration. Because nowadays in Kenya, when you go to demonstrations, it ends up being violent. And when someone is caught, you will face this. So they're just selling fear.
So you agree that this could be a misuse or an abuse of this Prevention of Terror Act?
I feel so.
Yes. Do you agree that probably in this instance, because young Kenyans across a board, across all regions of this country, sometimes do take to the streets, and in most instances, sometimes it ends up being violent and some property is destroyed, simply because some of these things or some of these wordings, destruction of property, are also contained in the Prevention of Terror Act. Do you believe that this is a right piece of legislation to use against this particular group of people behind who are being charged or are before court? And do you think that that was the intention of the Prevention of Terror Act?
Fred, many times when I come here, I always tell myself that I don't come here to claim fame or look for fame. I came here to speak facts as they are. And that's why I can be accountable to everything I've ever said in this platform. You know, when the government say that they're going to charge people on terrorism, and you follow whatever the government is saying, is fairly wherever I'm buying it. I support it. Because in terrorism, there is the act to do terror, whereby we've seen in videos, there are images of people who are doing. There are people who did demonstration, they looted anything, and there are people who looted a supermarket, took things all over. And there are photos, videos showing. So those are acts of robbery. Those people need to be, those are robbery which they need to be taken to court about it. Number two,
it is not about the issue of being taken to court. It's about the use of which law. Because yes, there are laws that provide for penalties, for punishment for robbery with violence. There's murder, there's arson, which are separate from terror acts. There are laws to punish all these things, including robbery with violence, which could lead even to a death sentence. Yes, it is the use of the Prevention of Terror Act, as opposed to these others, including the Penal Code and the Public Order Act, to charge demonstrators.
What do you say of someone who goes to a police station and burn it, or one who goes directly to face the police? That's an act of terror. That's a terrorism. That person is a terror. So when there is judgment for terror, there is somebody who do the act of facing the police and burning the police station, and then there is somebody who is involved in the planning of it. It's also it needs to be charged with terrorism, and there's also someone who funds the same people to go and do the act. All of those need to be charged with terrorism. And when the government gets facts about that person, many times maybe we're in a situation whereby we can only accuse if we saw somebody like Hans doing the act that this is a terror, but there are people behind it. All those also need to be charged with the act of terrorism. So I would support whatever is going on today. And we've seen, it's not everybody, it's just a few people. And those people need to go, because I wouldn't want us so much to undermine this act being done by government and being charged by terrorism, because we have a judiciary. If there's not enough evidences, they'll not be charged. And if they are, they'll pay for it.
Yet the direct consequence of charging someone with the anti-terror charges, related charges, is that the bail is unusually high, and probably some of the offences, if at all they are on the charge sheet, may prevent the suspects from gaining bail and allow for their continued custody for longer periods than normal crimes. Don't you think that could be the intention of the security agencies, and in doing so, that this could be seen as a misuse or abuse of the act?
Fred, recently we had many young people charged with terrorism at Kawa law courts. And if you look at the arguments between their legal representation and the office of the DPP, they could not pin substantial evidence that these guys actually are terrorists. Get that? Let me just read something for you. Porter Act 2012 was enacted in Kenya with the primary intention of strengthening the legal framework to combat terrorism. And remember, this law was passed in response to increasing terrorism threats, especially on Al-Shabaab and growing concerns of national security. In the mindset of people who put up this Porter, they were not looking at internal issues. The mind was on external attacks, which external attacks, a country can be attacked maybe through Al-Shabaab, yes, by financing from inside. But it was not meant to address issues of protests, which are clearly addressed on the Constitution. Look at that, Article 37. So what we are saying is, as we are right now, there is misuse of this act. And it's on record where the ODPP was told to read the act and ensure that everything that is doing is confined within the law so that we don't politicize this process. Let me ask you, if those men and those ladies and gents, if you look at them who are charged with terrorism, let's say the government or the ODPP pushed their agenda and they were found guilty and jailed, what is the communication about Kenya even outside the world? That Kenya is a nation with people under the age of 35 who are terrorists? So if you're talking about youth under the age of 35 being terrorists, How about the people who are beyond 35? The picture and the portrait we are giving a country, we must be very careful about it. We are talking about hosting Chan. We're talking about attracting tourists. And the same country that we are talking about young people being terrorists. Get that? So there is an intention of misuse of this Porter Act, which we must not allow as a country. And the legal practitioners, including the president of LSK, is on record advising, calling out the ODPP to work to handle this act very carefully in accordance with the Constitution, because if we misuse this act and actually jail people on this act, Porter, terrorism, we must be careful on where we are putting the country. And the president understands all this. Look at that. I was at Kawa Law Courts. Let me tell you, when the honorable member was also brought in and other young people were brought in, there were no sufficient evidence to align to this act. And if you're talking about terrorists, and this question has been asked times and times and nobody is responding to it. Police stations were banned. We saw it. It's unfortunate. But is there a police station that do not have inmates at a particular time? If you walk in the police station in this country today, all of them, you will not miss an inmate at one particular time. What happened that when those police stations were banned, there is no case of an inmate who was banned inside. We're just putting a question so that we look at this thing broadly, so to avoid misuse of Porter. So that these guys can be charged with arson or other things, but not terrorism. Get that? If a law courts was banned, we've not had complaints of reports and files that disappeared and everything. Get that? We are not pointing fingers to somebody that somebody must have masterminded and everything. But what we are saying is the Porter Act must be used appropriately. And if it is misused today, remember, judgments made can be referred in making other judgments. If today Kenya Kwanza decides to misuse the Porter Act, and tomorrow they are out of power, and they find themselves in similar situation, get that? And the judge at that time decides to refer to the judgment that was made in 2025 to decide their issue. You see, it becomes an unbalanced. We'll be having a community that is not balanced in terms of implementation. So we must not misuse the Porter Act.
Okay.
Yeah, those gentlemen are not terrorists.
Indeed, I said the law applies both ways. It cuts both ways. That it may be used to your advantage today, but it could also come and bite you later on. Do you think that if at all the number of young people who are being facing charges of terror right now, if none of them is convicted, that in itself could be an indictment to the office of the DPP, and that in itself should be seen as a misuse, because we've seen people, and I think the best example is Boniface Mwangi, who initially was to face terror charges, but eventually they could not sustain them and had to drop them at the last minute, although they took him to the Kawa Law Courts, which is purely for anti-terror related charges, meaning that, and I think Babu has mentioned, that most of those charges are not sustainable. Toying around with a charge sheet that is purely defective from the word go on the part of the ODPP's office, what should we see that as?
Fred, actually it's not the first time whereby we are seeing this. In the previous regime, we saw when members of parliament were arrested and they were charged with the treason, and later with the treason, with the terrorism charge. You remember even after the swearing on of when TJ Kajwang swore in Raila Odinga, he faced charges of treason. He faced, there are some leaders who faced charges of terrorism. But along the way, they were dropped. Even now, these young people who are behind the bars, I feel like it's just to scare others who are determined to go on the demonstration. Very soon, these charges will be dropped. And when they do that, they fear. Like, I feel like there is a fear that when they are charged, it will set up precedents going forward. But along the way, these charges definitely will have to drop, because even the judges themselves, they know the consequences, which will come later. And basically, from the onset, I will repeat that these charges are always there to scare people. And it's not only in this line. We have seen cases to do with corruption. We have seen cases to do with murder. People have been taken to court or put behind the bars for committing murder, for committing other heinous crimes. But at the end of the day, one year, few months, they are dropped. So this will not be an exception.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to give you an opportunity for your final comments, 3 minutes each, Bwana Hansurop, on this issue. You say this is a correct law to be used. With the example that Ken Babu gave, that probably you, as a supporter of this administration, may in some few years find yourself on the other side of any administration. And if at all you're found protesting against any act by government, that such a charge would be preferred against you. Don't you think that that is an issue that should concern Kenyans going forward?
Yeah, it is true. I could find myself just the way Babu has found himself. It's 2 years and it's really loud. Yeah? He's just out for 2 years. You know, when you read the meaning of terrorism, you know, I was trying to listen to definitions. A terrorist is someone who engages in terrorism, which is a use of normal threat of violence to instill fear. You know, unless definition change, yeah? To achieve certain ideologies, either political, yeah, religious, you know, terrorism is definable. But one thing we are saying is, it is, you know, when we say that there were no inmates, there were no this, the same media is showing us whatever happens, how police stations are stormed. It is Kenyans who are dealing. We saw when Albert was being buried, Ojwang, sorry. And we saw whatever happened. We saw youths all the way going to a police station. We cannot say there was nothing that happened. And you know, when you have a police officers that are manning a police station like 10 or 20, and you have over 1,000 youths coming, you cannot say you'll shoot all of them. You know, there are things you must use.
You consider that terrorism? The fact that they stormed a police station.
Because we have a constitution, my brother. Mm-hmm. You cannot make decision out of your hand. Yeah? You cannot say today, because you found somebody killing another person, you also kill because you are the lineage, because the other person was doing something wrong. There's a law that we will follow. You'll also be charged. You get it? But let me just give my final comments on these issues of terrorism, abductions, and so on. Many times we've faulted the government, but with time we've seen honesty that we feels it. We've seen justification that are coming slowly over things that we've charged the government harshly. Like we saw the LSK withdrawing the representation of Ndiangui, the blocker, who his disappearance is questionable. He abducted himself as well. We've seen the issues of MP, Member of Parliament for Juja. He's in court today for abducting himself. And it was all over the media saying that it's the government that has done. So there are many things that are accused of. We are not saying the government is perfect, but there are many things that is accused of a government or of the current regime, which are just, somebody picks something and we run over it and we make it an headline. We have a desperate opposition today, which they call them United for Desperation, wherever. They want to be anything. And we are telling them today, you say Ruto must go, every child knows. You say that Ruto is a killer, everyone knows. You say Ruto is a thief, everyone knows. Now, tell those Kenyans you've told them the same story. You are planned for 2027. Then you're able to be the person on the current seat today. Everyone has listened, and they're even claiming that anyone hears. You know, I was listening to somebody was saying in the US that the current former deputy president gives Kenya sleepless night. If you believe so, why would you let somebody you believe in give people sleepless night? And if it seems to give that hope for Kenyans, then now begin to give us your agenda. Tell us what are your intentions for this country, because you cannot run a country by activism. There are rules, there are laws, there are everything to do. Something else is, you know, we cannot lie, Fred. Truth be told, there were robbery. There are videos of stealing. There are videos of destroying property. Even you just get somebody destroying even a flower on the street, which it is not Ruto, it is not the president's whatever. You know, you display your issues wrongly. how, if we claim we are wise, if we claim we are exposed, can we do demonstration as the exposed countries are doing? Can we have an agreement of even a dress code? Can we march? Can we march to a government? If the same government does not listen to us, can we change the leadership by voting it differently? And lastly, I want to encourage Kenyans that observe, listen, and listen carefully to what everyone says. Today we have videos of what the former deputy president used to say when in the government, and people do it and say, moments later, you see whatever he says when he's outside. Also observe whatever even us here in these panels who come here, who go to the media and speak, observe whatever we always say. And when the government achieves whatever they will say after. Right. We do not have none of them today who says, for really, we fought for this and SHA is working. No. Honestly, we did this and fertilizer is cheaper. We have more production in the farms. Coffee now is a better price. Blah, blah, right. Sugar today. When can we have honest discussion? Thank you.
Ken. Thank you, Bwana Fred. Let me just make it brief and direct to the point, and I pick it from where my brother, he has given us a challenge as the opposition that we have successfully injected the one-term agenda deep into the grassroots. And today, even the child of Mama Mboga, or the Mboga himself, knows that one term is a reality that will take effect. It's a matter of time. Let me say, my brother, that we are saying one term because we have a plan and we have an agenda for this country. Number one, we are intentional about restoring the education system. That's our agenda, number one. And we started saying this the moment we realized that this NFM thing is geared towards ensuring that a child of a common Kenyan cannot see himself or herself at the university. And that's our clear manifesto. That's our clear agenda, which will form part of our manifesto, that we must restore sanity in the education sector. That by first doing away with this NFM and ensuring that we put education in a level that it is affordable, even if it's not free, but affordable, that each and every Kenyan can get an opportunity to sit in class. Number two, we have a plan to restructure the health system. Health system is very critical. We can have education, but you cannot take dead men and women into class. So we have a clear work plan, and we are sharpening and keep on ironing to ensure that at the end of the day, we have clear health policies and health implementation plan that will see each and every Kenyan, even those without, also Nairobi, get affordable and quality health service. Number three, my brothers, I conclude, we must, and we have a clear pathway to revise taxes in this country. Because if businesses must survive, if opportunities of job creation must suffice, then there must be favorable, conducive environment to conduct business. Businessmen and women must come back, private investors must come back. And the united opposition is very clear and categorical on how we want to ensure that we revise taxation to provide a conducive environment where everybody can do business, to provide employment to the youth that they are saying that are many and therefore should not go to school. And on the issue of corruption, that one we are black and white. We are going to deal with it perpendicularly. If you are involved, you step aside to give an opportunity for people who are integral, timely services to Kenyans without biasness or nepotism that we are experiencing today. Finally, let me finish by this, my brother, because of time. And we all agree that as a generation, we must do away with issues of tribalism as far as this country and the leadership is concerned. And that's why I want to make it clear that when you see Mzee Rigathi Gachagua talking about Kikuyus, it's not about tribe. It's about the love for your people. Hans, you start from your family.
Bro,
you start from home. Let me just finish. Let me just finish. What I'm saying is this.
That's President Babu.
President William Ruto does not speak tribal. I agree with you, but he implements it. He's in action. He's an action man. He puts it in action. Rigathi speaks about it. That's another issue.
It doesn't.
But what I want to say, Mimi, if you tell me that I should hate Kikuyus or Kalenjins or Nene, I have friends in Kikuyu land. I have friends in Kalenjin land. I'm asking, answer yes, my friend. Then where is, answer has not wronged me in any way. Where is that bad Kalenjin? I can't see him.
Okay.
I have Kikuyu friends, and I'm planning to climb Mlima and restore the difference between Kikuyus and Luos in the 1969. Where is that bad Kikuyu? Is it the one in Kamukunji doing business, or is it Kikuyu in politics? I cannot establish. I'm trying to find that Kikuyu who is bad. I cannot see him.
Okay.
So the young people, we must step forward and first do away with tribal issues. And number two, put our gears forward. This is a battle war.
2 minutes only, a minute and a half, sorry.
I know Babu can speak the whole day.
Yes.
No, three things very quickly. One, as Kenyans, we have to be very careful with the political dispensation that we are seeing now. Yes, every Kenyan is saying one term. Why? Because they feel like they want a change that is going to transform this nation for better. But the problem is the people who are pushing the narrative of one term. In fact, in my own view, most of them, they are worse than even the ones we have. In that so-called united opposition, Fred, we have someone who was impeached because he was unable even to run a ministry, to run a government. He was person who was propagating the agenda of dividing the nation in terms of shares and whatever. And when they say that they are going to fight tribalism, and the wing they are has a history of advancing the tribalism agenda even now. In the same wing, we have, as the country was gearing towards restoring the agricultural sector of this country, they have someone who messed up the agricultural sector, including myself, a sugarcane farmer from Bungoma, being sold pieces of stones. So we have to be very careful as we advance this agenda of getting a better governance. But for me, I feel that united opposition is not a solution. Lastly, Fred, we are speaking of the youth position in this government. Now, we as the young people, we also felt like we have the opportunity of running this country to prosperity. But we are supporting a formation or formations which are not ready to give us an opportunity. Because when I hear the leader of the united opposition telling young people that come out in large numbers, register, have IDs, our destiny is to make William Ruto go. Come out during the voting day, guard the police station. They are not telling us to come out and stand for positions to support us. But they are telling us to give them support, to cushion them, to be their forces, to defend them.
Brian Nabiswa, political analyst, Hans Ropp, also a political analyst, and Ken Babu, National Youth Chairperson, DAPK. Our panelists this morning on Youth Perspective. I wish we had more time to discuss these issues. And just the big headlines today: elimu yalemea serikali, habari kuu kwenye Taifa Leo; education crisis, Mbadi cuts school capitation money. I think this is the biggest discussion, and People Daily puts it different. Ruto kills Kibaki's big dream, and that is in reference to free education. The Nation and The Standard have picked a different story: how MP Mishra made millions in organs trade. That's a Nation. And dirty organ trade on The Standard. These are the big headlines today. Hoping for better headlines next week. But in the meantime, it is a feel-good Friday here. I can see DJ Granite already in the house. Do stand by for some lovely music after this. My name is Freddie Ndemuli. Have a lovely weekend.